Kia ora te whānau, no mai haere mai, and welcome to Headlines and Heartlines. I'm Diana Jensen, your co-host and journalist.
And I'm Whakapaipai Gorgeous, your co-host and psychotherapist, and also Maiena's mama.
We're excited to welcome you to Headlines and Heartlines, the first podcast of its kind in the world.
This isn't just another news podcast. It's a groundbreaking space where we unpack global headlines with a unique blend of journalistic insight, therapeutic wisdom, and a te ao Māori lens.
As a mama-daughter duo, we're bringing something truly one of a kind, conversations that balance the hard realities of the world's news with the human stories and emotions behind them. No other podcast bridges the gap between the hard facts of journalism and the emotional insights of psychotherapy quite like this.
We're also here to foster deeper understanding, not just of the issues shaping our world, but also of how they shape us, creating a space for curious, compassionate people who want to engage with the news in a meaningful way.
Whether it's global headlines or personal heartlines, we'll explore the stories that connect us all.
So, subscribe today and be part of something groundbreaking.
Together, we'll create a space for meaningful and thoughtful conversations that celebrate the power of both the head and the heart. Kia ora te whānau, ko Maieana Jensen tōku ingoa. Kia ora everyone, I'm Maieana and you're back with Headlines and Heartlines.
Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Kia ora whānau. Ko te whaia Whakapaipai Gorgeous here, and welcome to another podcast of Headlines and Heartlines.
Hey, we got it right.
Yeah.
We're just having a giggle. Just our intros are often more challenging than just speaking, so we're getting there. How have you been this week, Mum?
It's busy and I feel tired physically, emotionally and mentally. But it doesn't take much for me to kick in and be in the moment and be very present when I need to be. So I use my own sort of sense of strategies to really assist me throughout the day. Oh, and actually one thing that's really interesting, and we know that scientists have done extensive research here and suggested that the moon has no involvement or accountability in the energies to people when the full moon is well, we have one currently, and I feel incredibly energetic every night, and I'm like, the moon is trying to beam me up, so I have to be very conscious of just chilling and not being too energetic in the evening with this beautiful Marama moon.
I was going to say, did you say that researchers don't believe? Because if you, I guess, turn back to Te Ao Māori, like that's completely contradicting what.
These are scientists, these are Western scientists have had many research done, and there is no correlation with the moon energies and human interactions or actions during this period.
Okay. Yeah, well, I guess because I've listened to a Maramataka expert, Matua Rereata Makiha, and he's working with researchers here, so maybe there's more to come in that space.
I hope so.
Yeah, if you follow the Maramataka, the lunar calendar,
of course,
a lot of the the things that depending on the moon cycle, and actually
my own
the mayor of I was going to say the mayor of the Far North.
Oh, you go.
No, I was just saying there's a few councils, in particular here in the Far North, they actually follow the Maramataka in terms of when they plan hui and stuff. So when they plan when they're going to meet, and so if it's meant to be during a time where it's like huna, I think is one of the low periods, then they avoid. I could be wrong, so don't quote me. But if it is during that low period where like the half moon, I think it is. That's where it's tamatea as well. I could be getting it completely wrong, so aroha mai, but I do know that during those low periods they always try to avoid hui. So maybe it just depends on where you are.
Yeah, my maternal grandfather completely followed Marama and right through to fishing, the gardening, and actually other aspects of his life. I think how he sort of navigated and got through things was all based on Marama, the moon. I remember that very clearly as a child.
Yeah, well, there's definitely been a resurgence of that in the last kind of 10 years. I mean, I think it's always been there, like you said, but I think it becoming more mainstream now and becoming something that more and more people are talking about is really cool.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, moving on from the moon and to news. And there's been a lot going on around the world. Obviously, there's always things going on in the news, but yeah, still really a lot of interesting developments. So to kick us off, we're going to do a rapid fire update on around 5 international stories, which we're looking at from around, like from news sources around the world. So if you want to kick us off, Mama?
Okay, so CNN reported this week that Google Maps has renamed the Gulf of Mexico to Gulf of America for US users after an executive order from President Donald Trump. International users see Gulf of Mexico, Gulf of America, while Mexico retains the original name. The change has sparked global debate, with critics call it a political gesture that disregards the Gulf's cultural and geographical significance. Google has not confirmed if the change is permanent or restricted to the US-based users, leaving the decision under scrutiny. Interesting.
Very interesting, and I'm sure we'll hear more about that. Elon Musk, in another story, has led a $97.4 billion bid to acquire OpenAI, which is the creator of ChatGPT, in a move that has reignited tensions with CEO Sam Altman, America's ABC News reports. Musk is a co-founder of OpenAI and claims the takeover would return the company to its original mission of prioritizing safety and open source AI. Altman, however, dismissed the offer. Critics question Musk's motives, pointing to his competing AI ventures and OpenAI's current $300 billion valuation. So yeah, it's really interesting seeing all the things that are going on with Musk at the moment. But we can talk about that more.
Yep. Right. So the ABC News Australia reports that a Miss Pacific Islands pageant, excuse me, judge. I think I might say it a bit again.
Yep.
Okay. ABC News Australia reports that a Miss Pacific Islands pageant judge has been barred from leaving the Solomon Islands due to an unresolved legal dispute. Authorities have reported restricted their travel while awaiting a court hearing to address the matter. The incident has drawn attention to the broader handling of legal and procedural issues within the region. It remains unclear when the court will convene or if the judge will face further restrictions. More details are expected as the case develops. It's just across the water in our beautiful Pacific.
We'll see what happens there. Turning back to Aotearoa, The Guardian has reported this week that New Zealand Rugby, NZR, is pursuing legal action against INEOS, which is a British multinational chemicals company, over a sponsorship agreement. The dispute centres on allegations that INEOS failed to fulfil its financial commitments, potentially jeopardising NZR's funding and future partnerships. The legal proceedings are ongoing, with both parties preparing for a court hearing. This development has raised concerns within the rugby community about the financial stability of NZR and the potential impact on the sport's growth in New Zealand.
Yes. All right. According to Reuters, most countries missed the UN deadline to submit updated climate targets, a setback in global efforts to combat climate change. Major polluters like China, India, and the European Union failed to meet the deadline. The Paris Agreement required nearly 200 signatory nations to present their updated national climate plans by Monday, detailing how they intend to reduce emissions by 2035. The missed deadline has raised concerns about the prioritisation of climate action in government agendas.
Another I was trying not to laugh because according to Reuters, I think it's supposed to be Reuters.
I know, I'm like, Rita, R-E-U, Rio. Look, say it in English. Reuters.
I'm sure they get Reuters all the time.
So.
Oh, funny.
I mean, who are the rooters?
We've got to tag rooters this episode.
Dyslexia brain comes on.
No, we'll get a good laugh from that. But yeah, so now some really interesting stories, and it just feels a bit like the world's just in a real state at the moment, just around some of these different things and policies, and just the handbrakes on really important things like climate change and meeting those deadlines and things like that. So yeah, interesting times.
It is.
But moving on to our Oh, sorry, Mum, you go.
Well, I was just going to further add that I think, globalization gives us this wonderful, rich opportunity to have these conversations, right? And we're recognizing things that don't sit well within us because of our own sets of values and principles. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like there is definitely a good way of shift coming, but it's almost like we have to go really bad one way before we can, I mean, depending on your opinion of things, but it feels like we're kind of going backwards in a lot of ways in what's been achieved in terms of, looking at the climate and making sure that, we have a future for our, mukapuna, making mukapuna decisions, not just sort of thinking of the here and now, but also in terms of equity and acknowledging minorities and all of those things. And when you look at policy and the policies that are being kind of churned out at the moment by President Trump, it's pretty concerning and really scary for a lot of people, that we covered, I think, in our first episode. But yeah, we'll see what happens. And on that note around policy changes, a big one as we delve into our main stories today in Headlines and Heartlines, is a story that came from the New Zealand Herald this week, which talked about the government easing investor visa rules to boost foreign investment. So some of the key points around this story were based on the New Zealand government, which has relaxed its investor visa regulations to attract foreign investment, which means the revised rules will eliminate the English language requirement and reduce the minimum stay for investors to 21 days over 3 years. So applicants must invest $5 million directly into local businesses in order to be eligible for this visa. So in terms of the economy, the thinking is behind this is that the initiative will aim to stimulate economic growth and job creation by encouraging affluent migrants to invest in sectors such as banking, fintech, transport, energy, and manufacturing. And this kind of lends itself to some broader trends that are going on around the world. So it's not just happening here in Aotearoa, but it's happening in places like Singapore and Ireland, who have developed similar initiatives to help to bolster their economy. And Australia is also considering doing the same. So if the opposition leader Peter Dutton is voted in, then he's also recently advised that he will bring back a visa program aimed at boosting economic growth as well, creating jobs and bringing in much needed capital, especially post-pandemic. So it's been sort of called a millionaire's visa scheme, which was axed previously by Labor due to fraud and criminal exploitation concerns, but that could now be revived if the coalition comes to power. There are a few criticisms of this change. For example, the potential for wealth concentration. So one criticism is that investor visa programs could potentially lead to increased wealth inequality. Critics argue that by prioritizing wealthy individuals for visas, it may undermine social cohesion, and so those who can afford to invest receive preferential treatment, leaving average citizens without access to similar opportunities. And the influx of wealthy migrants could further escalate housing affordability issues, like particularly in cities like Auckland and Sydney, where real estate prices are already really high. Another thing, and you could probably speak to this, Mum, too, I guess, in terms of what you've seen in your mahi in the past, working with, people who are trying to get visas to actually, stay in Australia. And, these kinds of visa schemes have been criticised for prioritising foreign investor interests over local businesses and potentially undermining local entrepreneurship as well.
Well, From a that work perspective, some years ago, 3-4 years ago, working with a lot of the refugee and asylum seekers, there are many of these individuals who were highly skilled. Right from my memory is one was a neurosurgeon back in his country. One was a renal specialist. Various areas apart from the medical field, highly skilled educational people who had, equivalent to like a master's of education. But of course, in Australian education, that wasn't accepted here, and they would have to retrain and redo everything again. There were people who had skill sets, radiography, psychologists, clinical psychologists. There was quite a vast range of people who had enormous skill sets but were never provided the opportunity because they had entered on a refugee visa. And the path to get from the point of entry to actually that whole process was so overwhelming financially and time-wise was absolutely critical. They actually had to go and, get and seek employment to just survive. I mean, some of these people were GPs, from countries that were in crisis, and these people were on front line and helping, and they were not able to transfer skills, to get supports, to put them in place, for further training to Australian standards to make sure that they are actually meeting criteria standards. So, they're being wasted by doing other, with all due respect, nothing menial in their tasks, but the gift of what they had trained to do is not being used. And I kind of agree with that potential for wealth concentration. I have no disrespect for people who have wealth, monetary wealth, as I don't have any disrespect for people who don't have it. We need a skill set across the board, regardless of where you come from. There's a richness in everyone and how they perform and how they can actually grow and use their particular skill set for constructively for all people in society. So I have some concerns around the entry of this particular visa criteria, because it is stating to some degree that we only want people that have got wealth, monetary wealth. And I think we should be inviting all people, regardless of your wealth.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, one of the other criticisms was, with some of these visas, there's also been a lack of rigorous checking. So the visas, insufficient vetting of investors' backgrounds and allowing people with questionable financial practices to gain access to immigration benefits, which can also lead to risks around the integrity of business practice and investment. And I just find it really, like you said, you've got these people who are incredibly talented and have all of these skills. Why not open up a path for people who could? Because I mean, I know here in New Zealand, and I'm pretty sure it's the same in Australia. Like, we're screaming for people who have those skills, who can work in health, who can work in education, who can do all of those things. And if it was a matter of ensuring, that they had all of the so they didn't have to train all over again, so they could just ensure that they pass all the critical things that they need to, then why not invest in making that happen? Because then you instantly are helping relieve some of that pressure of having not enough people in that workforce, and then they bring all of their amazing skills and life experience as well, and then can actually make something for their whānau as well. That to me would make a lot of sense.
So there obviously needs to be a lot more debate, in regards to what they're proposing. And, we sit back and listen and wait now for how they're going to actually initiate this so that it has to be fair. It has to be a fair proposal. It surely cannot discriminate wealth from non-wealth.
Yeah, well, I think some of the aims with the visa and some of the positives that they're trying to, encourage is, with foreign capital, that can also benefit the local economy if the investors bring money that can be used to expand businesses and create jobs and stimulate industries like technology, infrastructure, and tourism. And so, in some cases, foreign investors can also introduce new skills and ideas and expertise to local companies, which can also enhance innovation. So it doesn't necessarily have to be all bad, but I think it's just the ethics around it as well, and making sure that proper checks and balances are in place, and that, there is kind of a standard of expectation around what these visas will mean, and how, if the net benefit is for, the local people living here rather than it just going offshore.
Yep.
Yeah.
Did all of that.
But yeah, that's quite interesting. Yeah, to see that. And I guess in light of everything going on with the US and Donald Trump introducing, I think it's a 25% trade tariff. So that's going to hit a lot of economies hard. So I can understand from an economic point of view why they would be looking at different ways of raising income, if or raising money and investment, if that's going to have a big impact on our economies. I mean, I'm not an economist by any means. I'm just sort of looking at a high level what I anticipate or interpret that to mean, and why the governments are looking at all these different options. So the next story is about, the headline was Kiwiburn organisers ask attendees to inform them of people having gone. Sorry, I'll say that again. Kiwiburn organisers ask attendees to inform them of people having public sex, possibly in front of kids. So that was a story that ran from ran by RNZ this week. And so basically the story was about people who attended New Zealand's version of the Burning Man festival, Kiwiburn, and they're now being asked to come forward with names of anyone they saw engaging in public sex or masturbation. The festival took place in Hunterville, Rangitike, from the 22nd to the 27th of January, and it was attended by about 2,400 people. The theme this year was Trash Renaissance Fair. And then I guess after that, after everything went down, on the 3rd of February, the event organisers posted a note on its website which said, while it's undeniable that Kiwiburn was amazing this year, there was definitely some less than amazing behaviour that took place on the paddock. So yeah, if you read the story in full, there was some concerns about children who witnessed this behaviour. So there was public sexual activity during one particular event, and it sort of raised some concerns as well around, how you uphold community standards and ensure a family-friendly environment at a festival. And also, concerns about safeguarding minors. Sorry, I can't speak today. Safeguarding minors and maintaining acceptable behaviour at large public events. So, yeah, interesting. What are your thoughts on when you hear that?
Well, it sort of conjures up many different sort of. I start thinking about all the variables, and if we're having an adult concert, then you don't have minors attending. So my take on it is that it appears to me, because children were attending, this was perhaps publicised as a family event, and I'm not sure if that was the case. And from that mental health perspective, minors should not be viewing or subject or witnessing adults' intimacy or behaviours of sexual acts. It's not. It's not for children. Children should be children. They should be minors. Adults need to curb that sort of behaviour because of detrimental effects of it's like exposing children immediately to porn, isn't it? And how do they grapple with what they're actually witnessing and what they're actually experiencing? You know, it just opens up a whole area. Some children can be quite traumatized by this. Others might be more curious and want to actually start engaging or start playing in this manner, because those adults seem to be having all sorts of fun. It looks really great. But, you know, there will be that heightened awareness from the parents or carers or adults that exposing children to sexual acts of adults is just not what you do. It's not a healthy environment, and it's certainly not one that children should be exposed to. So I guess this is going to fall into quite some context of legal avenues as well, because, you know, having sex in a public arena is actually illegal, I believe, in New Zealand, as it is here in Australia. So the technical side of things is that children have now been abused. Effectively, technically, they have been abused by witnessing and experiencing the acts of these adults. So it'd be really interesting to see. I'm also hopeful that, you know, these children are now perhaps getting some really good educational support, both with their parents, carers, and for themselves. It's kind of looking at the environment of the concert as well. You know, is there alcohol? Is there drugs? Because this certainly can't be the act of functioning, balanced adults to do those sorts of acts in a public arena. Something is going on that really needs to be addressed.
Yeah, well, you would think there's something just, they're not inhibited in any way, right? So, you know, whatever is causing it, whether it be drug or alcohol consumption, or if there's maybe potentially, I don't know, not an understanding of what they're actually doing. I don't have capacity to understand that that's not healthy behavior. I'm not sure, but
well, it's also the avenue of perhaps considering that maybe these were some adult individuals who are themselves mentally not well. And, you know, to perform these sorts of intimate acts there's logic and rational is no longer available. So something's going on.
Yeah. No, interesting. So I think that's probably why I assume that's why they're calling for people and witnesses to be able to then take further actions.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely concerning, especially around if it was promoted as a family-friendly festival. I'd be pretty horrified if that, you know, if it was our children that were exposed to that as well. I think, you know, having to then educate them and you know, help support them through understanding what they just witnessed, because I would imagine it would be pretty overwhelming and confronting for a little person.
Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then moving on to the next story, we're going well for time tonight. The next story kind of not 100% lends itself, but it does talk around sort of young people, rangatahi's sort of mental well-being, and a big story that is not just being rolled out here in Aotearoa, but it's happening in other countries around the world at the moment. Meta has expanded its Instagram teen account protections to New Zealand. So that was also another story from the New Zealand Herald this week. So Meta's teen accounts initiative is now available in New Zealand with automatic privacy settings for the 16s, sleep mode, and restrictions on harmful content. So parental controls allow monitoring, but not direct message content. And Meta is also working on improved age verification measures, apparently. So from what I understand, Meta verifies age by asking its users to prove their age when they try to change their birth date from under 18 to over 18. So users may need to upload a selfie or ID for verification. Meta also uses biometric tools from Yoti to analyze physical features and movements from age estimation, which is tested in certain regions like the US. According to Meta, the company plans to use this technology to identify teens proactively, applying teen protection features even if their account lists them as an adult age. So, yeah, I guess in terms of broader trends, this, there's definitely been a lot more kōrero around the world in terms of safeguarding young people online and screen use, social media use and screen time. And there was a law introduced recently, was that right, in Australia about, I can't remember the law, was it making it illegal to, not illegal, but they were wanting to ban social media for kids under 16? Was that a bill that's gone through?
Yes, yep. So I still need to actually learn a little bit more about that particular legislation. But what I find interesting is that look at the rigid form of being very, very aware of protecting minors, young people, through this particular format. And then I'm referencing back to the story earlier, and then we have adults doing what they were doing in a field at a concert. I mean, this is what we're working on, is to protect children. And, this format here is tremendous at pointing that out. You only have one childhood. And if adults are going to seek to destroy and abuse that, then the work has to be really quite intense to really support that young person to be a child again. And many times it's not successful because the work is it's a lot of work. To regain trust of someone young when adults have abused them takes a lot of work.
Yeah.
And that child's worth it. However, resources, lots of other sort of aspects come into play. But I am pleased that these formats are working so hard to protect young people.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I feel as a parent myself, I remember, I think I was pregnant with the twins. So Audrey would have been about 4 and MJ was about nearly 2. So I was quite far along with the twins. So this is about 8 years ago now, because it was while I was hapu. But I remember I was working for the Queensland Times at the time, and I remember doing a story on an academic, Dr. Kirsty. I think it's Dr. Kirsty. What was her last name? I'll have to remember it and put it into the show notes. But she's an actual academic who is doing research into this particular field, and also how parents can navigate technology and keep their kids safe without, I guess, catastrophizing and making it this big, scary
fear. Putting fear as a basis of education doesn't work.
No, but I think what really it's always stayed with me, that interview, because at the time I remember I would let Audrey watch YouTube and kids YouTube and stuff like that, thinking it was pretty harmless because she was only like 2 or 3 or 4. So she would watch cartoons and things like that. But after I listened to her kōrero, she was like, well, a lot of these platforms are actually, there's hidden videos and things like that that are on there that
cameras
actually are exposed. Yeah, but exposing children to porn, and so they're being disguised as cartoons, and then out of nowhere something happens, like it might be a porn scene, or it might be like a beheading, something like terrible things that these children are not expecting, and not as parents as well. You're not expecting. Yeah, and you think you're doing the right thing by watching kids YouTube, for example, but still there's stuff on there as well. And then I think as time has gone on, and the normalized use of iPhones and smartphones by young people, and kids getting them at 4 or 5 years old, and just the not understanding the risks of what that involves, especially if these young people are getting onto platforms like Snapchat, which is prolific in terms of pedophiles, trying to engage with children, and other, even Roblox. That's a game, and they've found that on that platform as well, because Roblox is kind of like where they build little cities and lands and stuff like that. But when you turn it into a public one where you can become friends with people around the world, they've got scenarios where they've got sex rooms and things like that, and so they're inviting kids to places that, and under the guise of it being another young person, when in fact it's like an adult somewhere. And there's so many different horror stories. I mean, I've heard them coming out of Australia too, around young people, completing suicide because of the pressures that they're facing online with their peers now. They can't escape the bullying because it's not only in school, but it's coming home with them, and just that. I mean, I'm so grateful that we didn't that we didn't grow up with that, because it was already hard enough being a teenager, let alone having people have access to you all the time and posting photos of you. And the really cool thing now too is that there's the development of deep fakes, which is those videos where you can superimpose someone's head onto another body. So a lot of this stuff is happening now too, where you can't actually tell if it's real or fake. And so there's videos of people with their face on porn stars and all sorts of stuff. And for us as adults, we can probably look at that and go, well, that's not me. But as a young person who's quite vulnerable and going through all the things that you go through as a teenager, it feels like your whole world, right? And just awful. So I 100% support that. I would love to see a ban for under 16s, because I just don't think they need it. And our girls also know that they're not allowed to have a phone until they're 15, 16, and they're not allowed on those things. And if they're to use anything or to watch YouTube, it's on the big TV in the lounge where we're all around them. And it's only on certain, programs that, we allow them to be on. So, yeah.
The one thing I always do when I work with young people who have ongoing healing and, are seeking to recover from child sexual abuse is my sincere apology, firstly, that this has happened. I'm very, very sorry. And we work a lot towards recognizing and being in a position eventually, children are not available for adults in the manner for sexual gratification or reciprocation of the sexual acts. Children are children, adults are adults, and there are no blurred lines. So it takes a lot of sensitive and really respectful dialogue to hold some young person so that they understand there was no control for them, but they were being controlled. And the position that they're in now is to heal and recover. And that is not everything of who they are. It's a part of their identity that we're going to work through. And there is so much more to you. But to anyone listening, sex of any nature is for adults. It is not and never will be for children. That's very black and white. And I will stand by that.
Oh, 100%. And I think anyone who thinks otherwise really needs to get educated.
Yes.
Because it's never okay. Well,
so I would like to read the last story. I was going to say,
let's go to our last good news.
Because this is the good news story, and I specifically am designed for this story. Let me explain. New research reveals that fat cells typically associated with storing energy can play a crucial role in fighting cancer. Studies show that fat cells may limit or help limit cancer growth by limiting blood supplies to tumours. This unexpected discovery offers new insights into how our bodies interact with cancer and opens up possibilities for innovative treatments. Researchers are excited about the potential of fat cells to contribute to cancer therapy. According to Nice News, these findings could lead to breakthroughs in how we approach cancer treatment. Isn't it wonderful? I'm such a unique genius in storing my fat in the most beautiful places. You know, I mean,
I'm going to store them around.
So I guess it's a bit of a light-hearted look at it, isn't it? But I do resonate with the common sense of that research. You know, I have a body which is quite unique because I'm gifted from a couple of different cultures. And so from the waist up, I'm viewed as being rather slender. And from the waist down, well, you know, I'm just voluptuously sensational. And so I think that has always served me well with my health and how I walk in life and how I dance and swim or whatever. But it holds me firm and it's strong. So, yeah, bring on that fat. I love it. I've always said cellulite is sexy.
No, it's so beating as well. It's amazing.
Yep. Yep.
Oh, well, we've covered some awesome topics today, I feel, and really had a chance to look at all of them in depth and lean on our, you know, life experience, but also our expertise in all of these areas. And yeah, hopefully people have learned something just from hearing those. And as always, we'll chuck the links to the stories in our Substack post. So if you do want to read more about what we've been talking about, you have to make sure to subscribe to our Substack page. If you just look up Headlines and Heartlines on Substack, it will come up there. So yeah, make sure to subscribe to that. If you do want to do us a big favor, because we're new and we need feedback and we need people to, you know, let us know if they're tuning in or if they have any feedback, please do go ahead and like us on YouTube or follow us, and also on Spotify, as well as Instagram. We've got an Instagram page. So yeah, please go ahead and follow us on all of those platforms, and you'll never miss out on a podcast or a episode or links to what we're up to next week. Mum, why don't you talk about what you're up to next week? That's pretty exciting.
Wow, I'm mildly excited, but I will contain it because I know how to regulate. So I have got the most privileged meeting. Well, one hopes I can meet him, is the lovely Gabor Mate. So he's been an inspiration. And what I absolutely adore about this individual is that from a Māori perspective, here we have a kaumatua, this elder who is just spreading and sharing knowledge and wisdom in a fashion which I find really very intentional. He's a very calm individual with a richness of amazing stories and kōrero. So I'm going to go and see him and watch him and hear him and engage with him next Wednesday in the Gold Coast. So Gabor Mate, I can't help it. I know you don't know me, but I love you. I love you, I love you, I love you. Divine individual.
Yeah, he's pretty epic. And yeah, I can't wait to hear about how that goes. And I can't wait to see your photo with him. That'll be amazing. We'll make sure to post that as well. So yeah, stay tuned, everybody, if you'd like to see how that goes. And yeah, thank you once again for listening in. We really appreciate people, you know, just listening to what we have to say, and hopefully it is informative and helps keep you abreast of what's going on around the world. And yeah, thanks, Mum, as always, for having the kōrero with me. And hope you all have a wonderful week ahead.
Yes, thank you. And I love you more than I love Gabor, by the way.
I love you too more than I love
Gabor. All right. Ka kite.
All right. Yeah, no, ka kite.